In today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit unusual. You see, I don't normally cover games, but for this device, I'll make an exception. It's an electronic game from 1980 that uses 8-track cartridges, and it's called the OMNI Entertainment System. Now, I don't believe they ever sold this here in the UK. I've imported this one from the US via eBay, and recently I've also managed to get hold of some extra cartridges for it. So let's take a good look at it. At the time the OMNI was released, it cost $119.99. I've got a page out of the Sears catalogue here. You can also see on the right how much the additional cartridges cost, $11.99. Now, if we look at the other things that are in the catalogue at the same time, you can see the rest of the games are quite basic, LED-based electronic games. There was a chess set there as well, which cost a little bit more than the OMNI, but let's go back to that price again, $119.99. If we convert that from 1980 prices up to the current date, that's $377.70. The OMNI was released under Milton Bradley's MB Electronics label. That trademark was first applied for in 1978 and first used in 1979 and expired in 2000. But around about 1979-1980, Milton Bradley did introduce quite a few different electronic devices to the market. People around my age will remember the Big Track, Simon and the Microvision. But if you look on the Wikipedia page for MB and look under their electronic devices, you'll see no mention made of the OMNI. It seems like this is one of those forgotten products. So let's put that right in this video and I'll explain to you exactly what it is and how it works. It's an electronic quiz machine that asks questions contained on 8-track cartridges. It'll play the tape on the cartridge with the question on it, and then 1 to 4 players can enter their answers on the keyboard in front of them, and the machine keeps a score of who answered the questions correctly, who answered it first, and displays it on a little LED screen in front of each player. You can see on the back of the box here there's a number of different cartridges that were available for the machine at the time, and they each work in a slightly different way to do with the scoring and various other things. I'll show you that later on. Now, recently I've been fortunate enough to acquire some additional cartridges for my machine, but when I first got hold of it, it just came with this one. This is the cartridge that came inside the box when you first bought it. It's the Variety Programmed Game cartridge. It contains 4 different games, which are really samplers in a way of the other cartridges in the range, because those are all repeated out into full cartridges, such as Vincent Price's Movie Trivia, where Mr. Price asks the questions, Jeopardy, of course, based on the US game show, as well as Password Plus, another game show based cartridge, and then I've got a couple of other ones that aren't really licensed, I suppose. We've got the Music Quiz, which you must be sharp to win, and Words, which has great unabridged fun. So if you'd bought all these cartridges together with the machine itself back in 1980, that would have been some considerable investment. I've got to say it wasn't particularly cheap nowadays, especially when you add on those import duties. But let's have a look at the machine in a little bit more detail. So you can see we've got the keyboard each side for up to 4 players, but you don't have to have 4. You can play with just one person if you want, if you don't have any friends. We've got the keyboard across the bottom here. You can see we've got numbers, we've got colours, and we've got letters across the top. The games would use those in different ways. It depends which game you're playing. So some games would want you to type in the answer as a word, some will want you to select from a multiple choice 1 to 4, some will say true or false, which would be 1 or 2. You've also got a go key at one end of the keyboard and an enter key at the other, and I'd imagine the Sesame Street cartridge would probably use those colours along the top. In the middle of the machine there's a speaker, a volume control and a channel selector, which goes from 1 to 4. That's how you choose the program that you want to play off the cartridge. The pack-in cartridge, remember, has 4 different kinds of quiz on there, so you choose which one you want to play by dialing that around to the appropriate number. Above each player is a 2-digit LED display which has multiple functions. It'll show the score that's just been obtained on the last question. Every now and then it'll show the total score for that player. It will also provide prompts as to the fact that you need to enter something on the keyboard before you can continue. The machine uses normal 8-track cartridges. There's nothing unusual at all about the cartridge. It's more about what's contained on the tape. In fact, the machine can even play back normal music 8 tracks. But if you don't know anything about an 8-track cartridge, I managed to find an old video here which will explain them in a little bit more detail.
Hello, if you bought a new car recently, it's more than likely it will have an 8-track cartridge player. But what is an 8-track cartridge player, and why is it called an 8-track? I'm going to explain it to you. Now, an 8-track cartridge is a continuous loop of tape. If an album has 40 minutes on it, it will have a 10-minute loop, approximately, which goes around and around. Well, how does 10 minutes fit 40 minutes worth of music on it? Well, it divides it into 4 programs. Now, when the tape reaches the end, there's a metallic coating on it which drops the playhead down to continue on the next program, and similarly all the way down to the end of the cartridge. The tape head looks like this. We've got a left and a right channel. If we want to play the first program, it goes at the top of the tape and plays tracks 1 and 5 together to produce a stereo sound. And then when it moves down to the next program, it goes to tracks 2 and 6. Next program, track 3 and 7, and next 4 and 8. And that is how an 8-track cartridge works.
So here's how that works in practice. You can see on this album we've got the 4 different programs on the back, but if we look a little bit closer, at the end of the first program, Who Said I Would? There's only half of that. It continues on program 2, and similarly on program 3, at the end of that one, we've got Inside Out, which has to be continued on program 4, and that's because each loop is a set length. Now, when it comes to the interactivity of listening to an 8-track music cartridge, there's not an awful lot there. You can just listen to it from beginning to end, or by pressing the select button, you can move between the 4 available programs, one after the other, in a sequential loop. And that's the sum of it. But this feature of the 8-track cartridge, the ability to jump between 4 individual parallel programs running at the same time on a tape, was used to great effect in one fondly remembered toy from the 1980s, the 2XL from Mego. And it achieved this by having an individual selector button for each of the 4 programs on the cartridge. So rather than the sequential selection that you get on a normal 8-track music player, with this machine you can jump to an individual track in an instant. So the machine could ask a question on program 1. By pressing the answer buttons, you're jumping the playhead down to programs 2, 3 or 4, on which would be contained the appropriate response to the answer that you've given. Now, the reason I mention this is because you might think with the OMNI also using 8-track cartridges, it uses a similar kind of interactive system, but it doesn't. On this one, it remains on the same channel throughout. The channel selector is just used to pick the type of game that you want to play off the 4 available on the cartridge, but then it remains on that channel throughout. So there's something a little bit more complicated going on here to provide the interactivity. And my best guess at this point is it's something to do with the fact the device only has a mono speaker. So therefore we've got a spare channel on the tape which could be loading program data into the OMNI to enable it to perform different functions. To give you an idea of some of the programming that's required to be able to play the different games, if we look in the manual here, it explains different scoring systems for the packing games. For example, Pat Summerall Sports Quiz, the first person to answer the question correctly gets 4 points, and the other people who answer it correctly get 3 points. Whereas if you go to the reaction game, the first person to answer it correctly gets 4 points, but then it goes down. The second one gets 3, next 2, next 1. But if we look at the music quiz, that's a different scoring system again. The first person to answer the question correctly gets 2 points, then the other ones get 1. And then on top of this, the answers to the questions are provided in a number of different ways. On some of the games, it's just a matter of pressing one of the keys. And then other ones, you have to type in the answer as a word. However, that'll just involve the machine translating those keys into a number. So cat, for example, would be 117. But still, quite a bit of sophistication going on in this machine. Let's have a listen to one of these cartridges to see if we can figure out where the data lies in relation to the questions.
You've just won the game of 11 Academy Awards. This film featured an exciting chariot race. Which film was it? 1. Spartacus, 2. Quo Vadis, 3. Ben-Hur, 4. None of the above. The film with the chariot race that was unforgettable was number 3, Ben-Hur.
So you should have been able to hear there that you get a burst of data before the question, which by the way I've muted down a lot because it was a lot louder than the speaking section, and then you get the question, but you also get some data on the other channel as well as some speaking. So let's just listen to one channel at a time.
You deserve an Oscar for winning this game. Congratulations.
Right, so this channel just contains a burst of data, a congratulatory message, and then a big gap, during which point the question will be being asked on the other channel, which we can't hear at the moment. And then there's a burst of data, some more silence, and then after a few seconds that's followed up by another burst of data and another congratulation type message.
You've just won the game. Are you all ready for another look at the movies?
Okay, so let's have a listen to the other channel.
Smokey and the Bandit grossed $34,745,000 in 1977. This puts it among the top 25 moneymakers since Gone with the Wind in 1939. True or false?
So at this point the players would select one or two, and then when every player had made their selection and pressed enter, the game would continue.
True. This movie starring Burt Reynolds and Sally Field is one of the all-time big moneymakers.
Okay, so let's try this out on the Omni itself. The cartridge slot is located on player 1's side of the game. By inserting the cartridge, it turns the device on. It's plugged into a mains power supply and I've got a voltage converter on it. I can feel the motor going, but I've got a feeling this tape isn't advancing. So I've put a mark on the tape itself, putting it back into the machine to see if the tape is moving at all. So after a few seconds, removed it, and sure enough, the dot's still in the same place. However, I figured out that it was just a matter of locating the cartridge slightly differently inside the slot. Things must have moved around a little bit, because if you push it in and then just pull it out ever so slightly, I could feel the cartridge moving properly, and after checking it I could see the tape was advancing, but still we were getting no kind of action out of the machine itself at all. No questions were being asked, nothing was showing on those LED displays. So after playing around with it for an hour or so, I decided it was time to open this one up. I'm sure you'll be quite happy about this, because people like to see what's inside these things as well. So it's a good opportunity to look at it, and hopefully we'll be able to get this thing up and running. So there's 8 screws in total in the bottom there. It's held together with a couple of wires here. I just had to remove those so I could separate the two halves. As you can see, the 8-track player is in the bottom and all the circuitry is in the top, and it's just joined together by a couple of different cables. Now, one of the advertised features of this device is that it's able to play normal music 8 tracks as well as the games. So I thought I'd test it out by playing an 8 track in it. And as you can see here, this was the issue I was having before. You just have to move the 8 track out a little bit from where it first locates to be able to get the tape to move. I also had to reconnect up those wires for the power, and also this one is for the tape heads. And after waiting around for about 30 seconds or so, you hear a beep, at which point you can press the enter key, and much to my relief, this happened. But whilst it was capable of playing 8-track music, it still didn't want to interact with the data that was contained on the special game cartridges. So I thought I'd take a closer look at the circuitry and see if I could find anything that was wrong that I was able to repair. Now, I'm not an expert in electronics. In fact, I'm not an expert in any field whatsoever, but what I'm looking for here is obviously bulging or leaky capacitors or anything that just looks a little bit out of place. But unfortunately, nothing stuck out as being obviously damaged. However, whilst I was in here, I did write down the values of the different capacitors with the intention of getting replacements if I need them. And whilst I'm in here, it gives me the opportunity to give you a bit of a tour around. So you can see here the 2 main chips that are on the circuit board, both from Texas Instruments. And if you look down towards the bottom left here, it looks like it's gone through quite a few quality control steps. And you'll have noticed that when I took it apart, I had to unplug 4 of these connectors, and these are the wires that go to the LED displays which show the scores for each player. And the keyboards for those players are behind these panels here, and they're all linked together by ribbon cables which go around the outside of the case and then join onto the circuit board at these 2 locations here. Now, whilst I had access to the volume control, it was a good opportunity to deoxidize it to get rid of the crackles, and I also thought I might as well unplug both of those chips and just spray some contact cleaner in there. I've had old computers in the past where socketed chips have become unresponsive, so I thought it might be something worth trying. And of course, it's always a good idea to clean the tape head. Now, you can do this without taking the cover off, but with the cover removed, it's a little bit easier to access it. So I clean that with some isopropyl alcohol. So I decided at this point, before I order any components, I'll just plug it all back together, and we'll see if any of the things that I've done, however minor they are, if they've brought this thing back to life. So let's put in a cartridge and find out. Now, I don't know whether it was anything I've done, and I severely doubt it was. However, I've now got the LED display flashing for each player, and that's indicating that you have to sign in to start the game, which is just a matter of pressing the Enter key at the right of the keyboard, then pressing Go. Now, I can hear the motor trying to move the tape, so the cartridge just needs a little bit of a wiggle to give it some encouragement.
Can you guess this extra bonus word? The first clue is Republic. R-E-P-U-B-L-I-C.
Great, the first question it's asked me, and I haven't got a clue about the answer, so I'll just type something random in to move it on a bit.
Second clue, Sadat. S-A-D-A-T. Third clue, Nile. N-I-L-E.
Okay, I should have got it on the second clue, Sadat, but this time I do know what it is. It's Egypt, so let's type that in on the keyboard. Now, I've set this up for multiple players, so I'll have to press Enter for the other players as well.
You're correct. The password is Egypt. E-G-Y-P-T.
Now, a lot of the interference on that last test was being picked up from my Wi-Fi router, which is located only about a foot or so away from where I'm shooting, so I've switched it off for this next test. Let's try a different cartridge.
This actor was a circus performer before he became a movie star. Is his name 1. Tony Curtis, 2. Burt Lancaster, 3. Charlton Heston, 4. None of the above.
Now, there's something not quite right here because I'm able to hear the data burst, which should be muted, and I can also hear some of the audio from other tracks.
Number 2. His name was Burt Lancaster.
The fact I can hear audio, which shouldn't be coming through on the speaker, gives me the indication that there's something wrong with the alignment of the head on the 8-track mechanism. So let's have a look at it. So here's the head, the metal section which moves up and down, and that's held within a plastic cradle. And you can see on the edge of the cradle here, there's a crack. The actual plastic has snapped and separated, which means, of course, the head will be out of alignment. So I'm going to have to take this thing apart so I can get to that component, and then I'm going to glue it together with some epoxy resin. So it requires quite a bit of delicate work, just taking these components one after the other out of the mechanism, and then I can remove the section which holds the head, and I can also remove the head from that so I don't accidentally get any glue on it, and you can see there how it's cracked. So just a matter now of mixing up some epoxy, putting that onto the plastic mechanism and holding it together and letting it set overnight. Whilst we're waiting for that, I'll just mention a couple of the other things I got inside the box. You've already seen the instruction booklet, but notice it's a device for ages 10 to adult. And the reason given for that is because it's a device which plugs into the wall power supply. It's not powered by batteries, and they don't want younger children messing around with that. But also, I think that a lot of children would have difficulty answering the questions on some of these cartridges. They do seem to be aimed at adults. We've also got the OMNI toll-free hotline number here, which we can ring up. I doubt anyone would answer that now. And we've got the OMNI registration card, and it amused me that that card goes back to Gene Lewis at Milton Bradley. Nowadays something like this would go back to the registration department, but back then it was just Gene, and everyone assumed that Gene would never retire from a job. It reminds me of a name from an old advert in the UK, Eileen Bilton. There'll be a few people that remember that one. But anyway, back to what was in the box. I've also got a letter that was sent from MB, presumably to the previous owner of this device I've got, back in 1991, and they're writing to him to say that it's a discontinued device. Now, I'm wondering if this was the chap writing to them to say, my OMNI has broken, do you offer repairs or replacements? And they've written back to say, no, I'm afraid we no longer support it, which might explain why my device is broken. So hopefully over 25 years later, my fix with epoxy resin will have resolved the issue that Mr. Thomas was having back in 1991. So let's put this thing back together and see if this time I can properly demonstrate it to you without having the data track blast over the audio or the other track leak through. Hopefully this time it's going to work properly. The heads are going to line up with the audio. Let's try it first though with an 8-track tape just to see if the tracks are lined up with the head. And after a little bit of adjustment, everything seems to be working fine. So I put the cover on and let's have a listen to Vincent Price's movie quiz.
In 1950, what movie featured the song Pete Kelly's Blues? Was it
1. Singing in the Rain. 2. Kelly and Me.
So I'm still hearing 2 tracks at once. Well, I'm pretty sure the machine is fine now, so it's got to be something wrong with the 8-track cartridge itself. Now, I've repaired plenty of these over the years. It's just a matter of figuring out how they open. There's quite a few different ways. With this one, it's just some plastic catches which have to be moved out of the way. So get the front open first. The other 2 are located beneath the sticker on the back. So just a matter of putting a screwdriver in there and levering those until they open up. And there you go, we're inside. So let's have a look at this sponge. Now you can see here it's lost its elasticity, and I'm guessing that that's putting the tracks out of alignment. So let me try and replace that sponge. Just a matter of peeling it off the plastic backing, and then I'm going to use the usual 8-track sponge replacement I normally use. This comes from stock Vis tapes. People have asked me about this before. The model there, TLD9624. I bought this at Claes Olsen in the UK, but I think it's available in other places. You just have to hunt it out. But look, this is like a dust excluder. We've got self-adhesive on one side, a shiny coating on the other, perfect for 8-track tapes to slide over. We've got the sponge in the middle, which is about the same width as the original 8-track sponge. So you just stick it on there and just cut off the edges so it's nice and neat. Put a notch in each end for this particular cartridge because that's how it's held in at the back, and then you just slide it in between those 2 pegs, and it's just a matter of putting the cartridge back together again. Now I'm going to come back to this cartridge in a moment, but first let's try playing words, words, words.
Type in the word that completes this affinity. Assault and...
Right, so what could that be? Well, remember, this is a game playable by children of 10 years and older, so let me put pepper in here. Assault and pepper.
Battery. B-A-T-T-E-R-Y. Assault and battery.
Oh, okay. I can't imagine them putting that in a game nowadays, but anyway, let's move on to the next question.
What word completes this affinity? Soap and...
So I'll type water in on the keyboard, or as the computer will read it, 81726. And as soon as I press enter, look at the score at the top, it goes up by 4.
Water. W-A-T-E-R. Soap and water.
Now on this cartridge, some of the answers you type in, and then some are multiple choice.
Choose the word that means the same as lexicon. L-E-X-I-C-O-N. Number 1, imp. 2, left-handed. 3, dictionary.
It's difficult to know what age group these cartridges are aimed at because questions like that one are particularly easy.
A lexicon is a dictionary. Number 3. The study of word applications is lexicology.
Okay, now let's try the Jeopardy cartridge. Now this is licensed from the TV show in the US. Now US viewers might be surprised to know that we don't have Jeopardy on the screens here in the UK. There were no instructions in this box. In fact, I haven't got instructions for any of these cartridges, so it took me a little while to figure out exactly how to play this game. Now at the start, each player signs in by pressing the enter key. So we'll sign in players 1 and 2 here by pressing enter. Notice each player gets 10 points. And for each question you're given a category, and you have to decide in advance how many points you're prepared to stake on it.
Under the category Famous Names, another of our daily bonus questions.
And at this point you decide how many of your points you're prepared to gamble on getting that question right, with the maximum being 4. So player 1 is gambling 2 and player 2 is gambling 3.
In 1960, he won an Olympic boxing title. 4 years later, he won the heavyweight championship. Number 1, Cassius Clay. 2, Floyd Patterson. 3, Sugar Ray Leonard.
So player 1 thinks the answer is number 1, so he presses 1 and then enter, and player 2 thinks the answer is number 2. And once the last person has answered, the scores are updated.
Who is Cassius Clay? Number 1. He is also known as Muhammad Ali.
Now, having very little knowledge of the Jeopardy game show and no access to the instruction booklet, I wasn't too sure how many points you could stake on a particular category. But luckily the machine will tell you. If you select 4 or below, it accepts it. If you try and go above that number, it won't accept it. Okay, so let's just try one more question. Imagine it's Christmas Day 1980. All the family are sat around with their new OMNI game system. Let's see what question it asks.
The profession with the highest suicide rate. Number 1, accountants. 2, writers. 3, physicians.
Oh, good, a nice jolly question. Well, stake your bets. Who do you think is most likely to kill themselves? Accountants, writers, or physicians? Come on, physicians, you can do it.
What are physicians? Number 3.
Woohoo! Get in there! Now, on this game, every now and then it'll stop and say something like,
That's using your head.
and flash the score of the current leader. OK, that's enough Jeopardy for the moment, so let's try a different cartridge. We'll play the movie trivia one, but unfortunately, even though I repaired it earlier on, I still haven't got it working perfectly.
My Darling Clementine, with Henry Fonda, depicted a famous gunfight which took place at the blank corral. Type in the name of that corral.
OK, that's an easy one. It can only really be one answer, but I'll type it in OK on both of these keypads here, and I'm going to press the Enter keys at slightly different times so you can see how the scoring system works.
The gunfight took place at the OK corral. I don't have to spell that out for you.
OK, we'll have a quick look at the music quiz now.
This is a favorite campfire song for young and old alike. Type in the first word in the title.
Notice how I can type the answer even whilst the music is still being played.
On top of Old Smoky is the title. Old Smoky refers to a hazy-looking peak in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Right, I'll let the machine do the talking now, so I've edited out the pauses. It's going to ask you 3 questions, see how well you do.
According to the Music Man, there's going to be trouble in number 1, Ocean City, 2, Lake City, 3, River City, 4, none of the above. Trouble in River City, number 3. Who made a hit recording of What a Difference a Day Makes? Number 1, Dinah Washington, 2, Natalie Cole, 3, Carly Simon, 4, none of the above. Dinah Washington, number 1. You are sharp today. Who wrote the soundtrack for the movie Superfly? Number 1, Anthony Newley, 2, Curtis Mayfield, 3, Paul Williams, 4, none of the above. Superfly represents the best of orchestral soul music and a platinum record for number 2, Curtis Mayfield.
And finally, I want to show you Password Plus, because this one works a little bit differently to the other cartridges in the way it switches between the 2 available audio tracks.
Can you guess this extra bonus word? The first clue is barrier. B-A-R-R-I-E-R.
Right, so I'm going to enter my answer. I think I'll put reef in, as in the Great Barrier Reef, so let me type that in and see how we get on. Oh, and player 2, well, he's just having a bit of a moment.
Second clue, great. G-R-E-A-T.
Well, that still fits in with my original answer, as in reef, so let me type that in again. Maybe the keys weren't registering properly. And what do you think, player 2? OK, well, chin up, it might be right.
Third clue, Berlin. B-E-R-L-I-N.
Finally, I get it now. It's wall, as in Berlin Wall, Great Wall of China, and Barrier Wall. What do you think, player number 2? Oh, forget it.
You guessed it. The password is wall. W-A-L-L.
Now, as far as what it does differently, just listen to the next announcement.
Please wait 10 seconds.
Now, if you're wondering why we have to wait 10 seconds, well, I've got a chap in my garage who can explain that to you. Right, now this is a little bit complicated, so it's going to be easier for me to explain it with another low-tech chart. Imagine this is your tape. We've got the left and right channels on it, and remember that OMNI can switch between the channels as and when it needs to. So, if we're playing password, the idea of the game is it gives you 3 clues to the password. And if you guess the password, it will then move on to the next question. The problem with this is, if you guess it too early, things get a little bit out of whack. I'll explain. You get clue 1, clue 2 and clue 3. Now let's imagine we've just guessed it after clue 3. So we've got the third clue, we've got to know what it is, type it in. If you've got it right, it's going to say, congratulations, you got it right, you know, you got the answer right, etc. And then it's going to give us a bonus question at this point, which is just one more question, and if we guess that one right, we'll get another congratulations, you've got it right here. Now, if we're not as good as that, and we get to the third clue and we haven't figured it out, we get it wrong, we get a fail message. Sorry, you've got it wrong, the answer is such and such. Now at this point, it can't give us the bonus section. So what it has to do is just play past it silently. So it's got a message saying, please wait 10 seconds, probably at the end of here. And it just plays past this section in silence until it can get back to the next question again. Now the problem lies if you answer it too early as well. So you get clue number 1 and you think, oh, I know it immediately, and you answer it here. Well, it's a long way away from this section here. So what it has to do, you've got clue 2 and clue 3 yet to play, but it's not going to give you those because you've already got it right. So it jumps down to this one and plays you a little bit of a jingle just to fill in a bit of time. And then music 1, that is, by the way, and then he'll play you another bit of a jingle here just to fill in some more time, just killing time until it can eventually get to the congratulations, you've got the answer right message. So you can see here on this particular game, by having these 2 linear tracks, depending on where you answer the question, you can sometimes find yourself answering a little bit too early for the game, and it just has to play past the section after that. So to give you an idea of what that sounds like, here's what happens when you answer the question on the first guess.
Can you guess this extra bonus word? The first clue is tumble. T-U-M-B-L-E.
Right, so let's type in the answer, which is fall, and see what happens. Okay, so that was the first piece of music, but all the time I'm talking to you, the tape is still moving forwards. Okay, so that was a second stalling piece of music, but now we're finally up to the section in the tape when it can say this.
You're correct. The password is fall. F-A-L-L.
Now, I think my chart was a little bit wrong because this was a bonus question, so it's a little bit more elaborate than I was describing, because then you get this.
Please wait 20 seconds to start the next puzzle.
But I'm sure you get the idea, and that just leaves one thing left to test. I know somebody's going to ask me to do this if I don't, so what happens if you put a 2XL cartridge in the Omni? Well, obviously it's incompatible. The Omni is just going to play it as a normal 8-track cartridge, which means playing it from the beginning to the end with no interactivity.
Thank you for turning me on. I am 2XL, and this program will pit my electronic brain against your biological thinking unit in the area of nostalgia.
So I think you get the idea there. It's just going to play through the whole tape, which of course you could do on any 8-track cartridge player. Perhaps I'll have a look at the 2XL in a future video. But now, on to the wrap-up. So there you go, that's the Omni from MB Electronics. Now when you mention a quiz machine that uses 8-track tapes, it sounds a little bit quaint, but this thing really is a bit of a marvel of technology for the time. The things they've done here are quite impressive. You've got to remember this is 1980, so we're going back quite a way, and it's a programmable computer effectively. It's reading data off the cartridges that enables it to run the different games in different ways. Before the questions come up, it knows what the answers are because it's loaded in a bit of data, but it's muted out that section. It then unmutes so you can hear the question. Depending on what your answer is, it then tallies up the scores. It can score 1 to 4 people. It knows the winner. It can flash the lights up. It can jump to the other track to play back audio that's relevant to the input that's been put in. There's a heck of a lot going on here. It's an incredibly impressive device, really. And the thing is, it's still fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun playing with this, and I'm sure if I had my nephews over, we could have a good game on this, and it wouldn't feel like something that was 37 years old. There aren't many games from that era that you can really play for more than a few moments. If you look at the catalogues from the time, from 1980, what electronic games were available, it's things like Simon and stuff, which, I've got to be honest, the novelty on those wears off a lot quicker than it does on this. Now, of course, at the time, once you'd played through the cartridge, you'd played through all 4 programs on it, there'd be very little incentive to return, but of course you can then buy additional cartridges. I think the main reason why this thing never really took off, well, there's probably a couple. It's gigantic and it was expensive, and $100 odd at the time. I've got a catalogue that I've shown you earlier on where you can see the comparison between this and other devices that are available. There won't be many households that would have wanted to purchase one of these. And I'd imagine it's going to have been a very expensive thing for MB to put together. The amount of engineering work that went into creating this is probably mind-boggling. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed looking at this surviving OMNI Entertainment System. And that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.